Okay, just started up the vehicle. Here you can see O2 sensor bank 1, sensor 1, doing a pretty normal waveform. It just started, so it's going to have to settle down a little bit, but that's that. And you can see the voltages ranging from about 0.1 or 0.095 to 0.78, which I think is pretty much a normal range. You want it hovering in there somewhere. The next we will take a look at is the bank 1 sensor 2, which is at a high voltage and which may or may not begin to respond. We'll come back to that. I don't know how immediately or how quickly, after the ignition is turned on, the sensor 2 begins to respond, the one after the catalytic converter. I'll add, I've already done I've done a back pressure check. So my cats are open. I've got no indication at all that I have too much back pressure at either idle or 2500 RPMs on either bank. Both banks seem to have the cats open. Whether they're functioning properly and doing their catalytic stuff is something I do not know. But I do know I was concerned that maybe they were all junked up and providing too much back pressure, and they're not doing that. So they are at least clear and not inhibiting the exhaust in any way. But like I said, whether they're working properly, I don't know. So let's go to the next sensor. And there's the other live data. You can see the O2 sensor bank 2 sensor 1 is still reading high. The waveform there, I've discovered I have to let it run for a little while before this waveform changes. But it does eventually, but it is not a smooth sinusoidal sort of waveform as we saw on the first O2 sensor position 1. And then let me go lower down and we'll take a look at sensor 2 in bank 2, and that one generally ends up being low, throwing a low voltage code for that sensor, but right now that's also hovering at okay, so now this is sensor bank 2 sensor 1. Now that's that's a percentage there. That's not something we're looking at. That's a short fuel trim. But let's go down to the sensor. I don't know, maybe that'll tell you something, the waveform there about the fuel trims. But there's the sensor 2 on bank 2. That's the sensor after the cat on bank 2, and that's reading high. So let's go back, as I said, and see if things have changed with bank 1 sensors. Bank 1 sensor now has a better looking waveform, maybe more sinusoidal, a little more even. I'm not touching the throttle at all, so this is all at idle. And I think I'm reading an open loop on bank 2, closed loop, probably closed loop fault on bank 1. Let's take a look. Oh, closed loop fault on bank 1, open loop fault on bank 2. It seems that bank 2 has to warm up more. I don't know all about the heater cores of the sensors, but I think it's only bank 1. I could be wrong. So anyway, that's that should be the first page. Yeah. So if you see anything there that indicates anything in particular. Short fuel trim, you can see that bouncing around. Long fuel trim, bank 1, is within tolerable limits from what I understand. Going down again, long fuel, short fuel trim, bank 2, excuse me, seems to be okay. Long fuel trim, I guess, seems to be okay. Manifold absolute pressure at 4.8, I believe, is tolerable within tolerances. RPM 607, whatever, 620s. Spark advance, don't know too much about, but I think that's okay. Intake air temp at 87 Fahrenheit, which is probably close to normal for now. Okay, so back again to this waveform. Bank 1, sensor 1. I'm going to gun it a little. Let's see if that changes a little bit. Yeah, see how that jumps around a little bit. But let's see if that changes anything in bank 1 sensor 2, the sensor in bank 1 after the cat. And I don't think it does, even if I so I'm getting no response from the position 2 sensor in bank 1. That's still at high voltage, 1.270. This is position 1, bank 2 sensor, still high. I don't think, now, okay, that's beginning to show a waveform, but there's not much fluctuation. It's only between 1.27 and 1.235. I believe you're going to see the lower limit number begin to drop. There you go. But that's still not quite, that's not this, even at idle, that's not quite the same looking waveform as we get in the position 1 sensor on bank 1. Where the bank 1 sensor is quite sinusoidal in appearance, this is not at all. And let's see if position 2 has anything. That is the position 2 sensor on bank 2, the one behind the cat. That's still at 1.270, showing no fluctuation at all. Let's go back up to, and let's take a look at our fuel trims again, because the fuel trim changes. Bank 2 has given me funky fuel trims, quite funky. They end up being negative 32. Now you can see the long fuel trim here in bank 2 is beginning to go negative 0.7, negative 7, excuse me. And it's gotten as low as negative 32. So, which shows a very rich condition, or if I'm interpreting it correctly, is showing when it's negative 32, that bank has a very rich condition. And I did swap out sensors from the first position for 1 bank and 2 bank. And it appears to not be the sensor. Whatever sensor is in the number 1 bank does show that sinusoidal. Oh, let me go back. This is O2 sensor bank 1, sensor 1. It does show that sinusoidal kind of, I think, acceptable waveform. And then back down to position 2. Still nothing happening in bank 1, sensor 2, the one after the cat. I could have a bad sensor. I know I've swapped sensors around, but I have no assurance that that one is working correctly. Other than I have used all new sensors, but I did use a couple that were a little cheaper off Amazon, and that might just be a crap sensor. But the ones, both sensors in position 1 on both banks are Bosch sensors. Now this is bank 2 sensor 1. Now that does not have what you would describe as a sinusoidal waveform, but it is fluctuating, and it's between well, right now it's gone to 1.15, and I think it's going to hold. That's what eventually happens. Oh, okay, there's a more sinusoidal, but that's when I give it a little bit of throttle. But you see, at idle, that waveform does not resemble at all the waveform of bank 1 sensor 1. And this is sensor 1, as I said. And bank 2, it just looks funky to me. And now the vehicle is beginning to misfire. I don't know if you can hear it, but it's beginning to run rough. It ran fine, it was idling nicely, now it's beginning to run rough. Let's see if the sensor in the 2 position is doing anything. No, even with a little bit of throttle. There we go. Oh, okay. So we can get that sensor to respond some, but I'm not convinced that's the waveform that we should see, or the voltages we should see. I appreciate you bearing with me in this. I have changed the fuel injectors. I've checked compression. I've got good compression across that whole bank. And like I say, bank 2 seems to be the most problematic. Let's go back and take a look at what the long fuel trim is now in bank 2. I have a feeling it's gone from 7.0 to negative. Oh, okay, it's still hovering at -7, which is not terrible. But there's the rest of the numbers. Changed the map sensor a while ago. That's seems to be doing what it should be doing. Map of 5.1 seems to be an okay absolute manifold pressure. Now the engine seems to even out a little bit, but and I'm not really convinced at all it's the O2 sensors. It could be the ECM is just in whatever sort of funk that it's responding to signals and sending back bad info. I don't know. Bad command, so to speak, back to according to the O2 sensors. That's bank 1 sensor 1. It seems to have lost its pretty sinusoidal appearance. Okay, there. No, I thought it was going to go back to it, and it's not. That is not what it was doing before. The engine is now at warm operating temperature. That now looks more normal, so to speak. But it's a little glitchy. It's not as smooth as it was before, not as regular in interval as it was before. Going back one more time, take a look at that bank and sensor 2. Nothing. Even with a little throttle, I'm getting no response from the sensor after the cat, which may be the sensor. I do not know. I will do whatever I got to do to determine whether that is the sensor or something else going on. And then one last look at bank 2. Definitely not sinusoidal looking at all. Rapid peaks, rapid drop, hovering between 4.5 and 4.9, which From what I understand, the 0.45 is kind of considered a good reading. So 0.45 to 0.49 is not bad, but it's the way the waveform looks to me. Now the top number is going up, so it's now fluctuating between 0.47 and 0.505. And I think as time goes on, that kind of gets high in itself. And then take a look at the number 2. Okay, so now the number 2 sensor is not reading high. And I can get that to respond with a little bit of throttle. And that's the waveform on the Bank 2 sensor. I thank you for your attention to this.